Three, two, one.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Unmasked Health. I'm your host, Shelly. Today we're going to kind of delve off into expanding more on last week's episode, talking about how low testosterone or low T affects your sexual health. And there are ways that you can reclaim, who you used to be in the bedroom. So, we were talking last week about how it affects low T affects your sexual health as far as decreased libido, your decreased drive, your decreased erections. And so we're going to kind of expand more on that today. Decreased libido, so you're not in the mood anymore. What happened to your desire? You're having erection issues. And guys, y'all all know what morning wood is, quote unquote, but all of a sudden that's disappeared. Your confidence level has really gone down, not just in the bedroom, but because there are issues in the bedroom, or you've had issues with, your erections, it affects your confidence in other ways at work, doing your normal job duties, your family life at home, your personal relationships with friends. And then you discover one day, hey, none of us are 20 anymore. Well, there may be some 20-year-olds out there listening, but at 20, most men and younger, 30, 40, whatever, most men are having these sexual thoughts and desires. And then all of a sudden, you know, tomorrow you may go, hey, I don't remember the last time I had a sexual thought. Your wife walked by you in, a nice outfit that you've always found her to be attractive in, and you didn't think your normal sexual thought about her. And so you go, okay, something is definitely wrong here. Um, so, you know, we know that men are the sexual lovers. I've said that before. 99% of the men are sexual lovers. We're the emotional lovers as women. And so just kind of reflect on that and just recall, like even today, have you had any sexual desires today? If all of a sudden you're having a light bulb that goes off above your head, I just want you to keep listening because there are ways to fix this and you don't have to fix it on your own. You don't have to try to struggle to fix things on your own. There are people out there who are willing to help. There are healthcare providers who specialize in hormone therapy. Family doctors specialize. There are some of us who specialize or, treat accordingly. And it's helpful for, my men that come into me. So last week, I talked about how there's normal decrease in your testosterone as you age. And I think it was in episode 2 where we were talking about how around the age of 30, testosterone normally decreases and then it decreases each year after that by like 1%. But what isn't normal is all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but gradually, or all of a sudden you've, paid attention to your symptoms. You're feeling totally drained. You're feeling completely disconnected from yourself, from life in general. And often what I hear from men is maybe not this exact word, but along the lines of I just really feel defeated. It doesn't matter what I do, I still feel drained. I still feel, undesirable. I'm my brain is foggy. I'm having depression symptoms. And so just keep listening for some solutions that we may have. In the last episode, I talked about how low testosterone not only affects you, but it affects your relationships. Remember, we talked about how us as emotional lovers, the women, we start going, okay, well, he's either got his eye on somebody else or there's something wrong with me. And it's not just your relationship with your significant other, but it could be with your friends, it could be with your coworkers. But let's focus on those relationships with, you and your spouse, your significant other a little more. So you've stopped initiating sex. Um, or have you stopped responding to your significant other's advances? And the biggest thing that comes out of that, what I've heard, what I've studied and researched, is that as the man, you feel really ashamed. You also feel really frustrated by that because no one likes to be anything other than their normal self. We always want to feel good. We always want to be healthy. I think a lot of times we all take for granted our health until something goes wrong. But we overlook things for a long time, especially our men. We've talked about that. You as a man, we're trying to break those barriers where you're not taking the time out of your week or out of your day to go and sit down and have your health screenings done, talk to your healthcare provider about, changes that you've noticed in your body. And so, 2, 3 years down the road, things have gotten so out of hand. You've ignored those issues for so long, hoping that things will just resolve on their own. And then you find out that your significant other is now really worried about you. Um, us as women feel unwanted. Maybe we don't feel that you desire us any longer. And again, we're unsure if you found another woman. And that's just reality. That is true reality of what will go through a woman's head when all of a sudden, her man is like not interested in her, or doesn't act like he's interested. Um, and recently, I always try to give an example of something that's recently or in the past has happened with a patient of mine. But he wanted to come in and sit down and talk about things that were going on in their bedroom, but he wanted to blame everything on his wife for his decreased sexual drive. And it wasn't that she had changed her routine of normal initiation, but he just felt like she had to perform a job instead of enjoying the intimate moments with him, which he turned around and said, well, that was just a complete turnoff for him. But as we kind of went through and we started breaking things down and we kind of broke the ice and opened up conversation, um, from the start of his symptoms and what that really looks like to us as women, I kind of think that reality kind of hit him across the face, kind of hit him hard. And guys, this is where communication is so important. And women, if you are listening, you should want to bring any of your concerns to his attention. We should want to squash immediately any assumptions. And we all know what assumptions means. Those can lead to trust issues. And in many cases, people may shut their partner completely out, even leading to a huge snowball effect. And so I say all of this to say that I've talked about so far isn't just about sex. It's not just about sex. This is about your identity and your ability to present emotionally. And not only have you lost your spark, but you're losing or you've already lost your connection. So, we know that low T chips away at your ability to connect with your partner, with things in life in general. So, I want to know how many of you are telling yourselves that what you are feeling is just normal aging. I hear it so often. I'm just getting old. Maybe I'm just too stressed. Maybe this is what marriage feels like after 20 to 30 years. And we're all guilty of saying that. We're all guilty. And I think a lot of times we're pushed off, when we get a certain age, we are pushed off. The symptoms are pushed off as being normal aging process. Um, but I can tell you that from a woman's viewpoint, and it should be from a man's viewpoint too, but we're focusing on men in this, series. So your partner isn't looking for somebody who is perfect all the time, not perfect at all, but they do want at least your effort and your energy and your confidence. And this is where, guys, this is where it becomes your responsibility. And that goes back to what we've talked about in the past few episodes. So what's the best way to address all that? What do you do with all that once you are willing to take on and try to work out the symptoms that you're having? So what do you do with it? Well, the best thing for you to do is to one, find somebody that you trust. I've said that before, but you need to go get tested. Again, your hormones can be easily checked. And repeatedly, I'm going to say that you need to have them checked before 10 o'clock in the morning. Um, you need to sit down with your provider and discuss what all treatments are out there that are available and what is going to be effective for you and efficient and is not so disruptive to your life. So I know we've talked about the weekly injections. Sometimes you have to do them twice a week. Sometimes you can do them once every 2 weeks, depending on how you feel once you start the injections, what needs to be done according to your lab results, and what your provider and you decide to come up with what your plan of care should be. Again, there's also other things like the pellets, um, and then there's topical gels and stuff. I just don't recommend those. Um, but importantly too is you don't need to leave everybody in the dark. And that's not, hey, go plan a dinner and sit down with mom, dad, grandpa, whatever, your wife, your significant other, and tell everybody at one time at the table that you've got something going on, that's personal, it's related to your sexual desires, your sexual health. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those that are closest with you, especially your significant other, and you don't have to give everybody the dirty details of everything. That nobody has to know every detail of your life unless you just want them to know. And listen, if you're open to telling them and they're open to listen and you trust that person and they're beneficial for you to tell, have at it. I encourage that. But you want to not keep things into yourself, because then that's where it comes to us thinking that we've done something wrong. We're not, who you want anymore, XYZ. So just be very open and communicate with your partner that there is something going on. And, you know, because then your significant other is probably going to sit there and go, hey, I want to help you. Let's do this together. Let me help you find somebody that both of us can trust, because it's not, yes, 100% it should be somebody that you trust. But if your significant other is wanting and your spouse is wanting to jump on board and be a part of your plan of care and your plan of treatment, then like I've said before, two in a room is more powerful than one in a room. Um, and most women do want to help their significant other, but you have to be willing to help yourself and stop brushing it off. Don't tell yourself it's just aging. Don't let somebody else tell you, well, this is just normal aging. um, don't say, well, I'm just stressed out at work all the time, which, yes, stress can affect everything in the body, yes, but don't just brush everything off to being, well, I'm just stressed out. um, if something feels off to you, it probably is. Just know that your body is trying to tell you something, trying to ring all the bells to you. Something's not right here. Pay attention to me. And so pay attention. And then if it feels off to you, then it probably is. Get your labs done and ask questions. If you have to do your research and Google and talk to other men, I'm pretty certain, just based off, the last year alone of me treating various men with this condition, um, that your best friend is probably experiencing the same thing, but he don't want to tell you. And a lot of that goes back to shame, which we're breaking down the barrier. I hope that as we continue this podcast and you continue to listen, that those barriers break down for you. But I guarantee that at least one other guy in your friend group besides yourself is experiencing the exact same thing you are. And hopefully y'all can come together and talk about that. You don't have to tell everybody your business. You don't have to give them detail about what's going on in behind closed doors. You don't have to do that. But at least you have somebody that is similar to you, that that you trust, that you can sit down and kind of talk things over with, which I think is very ideal and realistic. If you don't know where to start, then you're in the right place today. Start here. Um, you can follow Unmask Health. Make sure that you subscribe so that you can get notifications for, episodes that come out weekly. The other thing is just to share this episode. If women, if you're listening, share it with men that you know in your life. Men, share it with your friends, because that might be the opening door for them to go, hey, maybe I know you sent me that for a reason, but were you listening to that for a reason? And maybe that will be kind of like your therapy session. It's always more comforting when we have somebody next to us that is going through something similar as we are. You don't feel so alone that way. And a lot of times I have found out that it you can give each other courage, kind of push each other. And I think that's very beneficial. Make sure you subscribe. You can leave a review. You can tell me, great job, or, how horrible it is, what I can change. But, also email at unmask health at gmail.com. Any questions or anything that you want me to go over or to address. And I will leave everything anonymous. This is not, I'm not here to throw anybody out under the bus or to reveal what your name or identity is. That's not my purpose. I know all about the HIPAA law, and I expect to follow that on my podcast. But until next week we may, I haven't fully decided yet if I'm going to kind of go back a little bit more and talk about the mental health aspect, or if we're going to continue to, progress as we talk about this a little bit more. So until next week, make sure you stay bold, stay honest, and stay unmasked.